So for today's warm-up, we're going to go ahead and solve this two-step inequality. This is worked out the same way as a two-step equation. The only difference is that, again, there's no equal sign in the middle or towards the side, and we do have a number line. So we do have to worry about that after the fact. But we're going to go ahead and look at this one. Before we get started, or before we start to solve, is we need to look at what operations we see in this problem. So we're going to look at our x first, which is here, and we want to try to get x by itself. So if we look on the same side as the x, I notice that I have two numbers. I have a 5 and I have a 2/3. And so these two numbers do need to move away from the x. So we are not going to be moving the -7. We're only going to be moving these numbers here. And we need to decide what type of operation is going on between them so that we can do the inverse of those operations to move them to the other side. The first thing that I probably will hear you guys say is that you see multiplication. That is one thing that you guys are really great about noticing in a problem. So we do see multiplication right here. I'm going to put an M for multiplication. The inverse of that is going to be division. The next thing that you might say that you see is subtraction, but remember that this negative or this subtraction sign is belonging to the 2/3. So this is actually a -2/3 x. So that negative is not acting as a subtraction sign, it's actually acting as a negative sign to this 2/3. We need to look at the 5. What kind of 5 is this so that I can do the opposite on the other side? And again, we need to remember that if there's no sign in front, that it is automatically a plus sign. So we have addition going on here. The inverse is subtraction. The next thing we need to ask ourselves is, which one do we do first? Do we do the multiplication or do we attack with the addition? And again, when we do order of operations backwards, we want to start with the addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. And then the 5s on the left-hand side are going to cancel out, and I need to bring everything else down. So when I bring this down, I don't forget that that negative needs to come down also, so that this is a -2/3 x greater than or equal to, and we need to figure out what this is right here. So are my signs the same or different? They are the same. And if they are the same, what are we going to do? We are going to add and keep the sign the same. So when we add these together, I'm going to get a -12. Remember, two negatives do not make a positive when we work this out because this is an addition problem. Two negatives only make a positive when we are multiplying. Okay. Next step we're going to do is to undo the multiplication that is going on between the -2/3 and the x. Now, we had put up here that the inverse is division, but remember, we don't divide fractions. There's a special thing that we do anytime we have to divide a fraction. And remember, that's that copy dot flip. So copy dot flip. But in this case, we're not going to do the copy part. We are going to be doing the dot flip part. So I'm going to dot flip this fraction on both sides. Now, notice here that I put the negative in the numerator or on top. It doesn't matter where you put the negative sign. I like to keep the negative sign on the top so that I don't forget about it. It's just more comfortable for me to put it on the top. If you want to put it down in the denominator, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that that negative sign comes with. So again, this negative needs another negative in order for those to cancel out. So I'm going to dot flip on the other side. Now remember, in order for us to multiply this fraction with this whole number needs to be written as a fraction. So therefore, I need to change that to a -12/1. On the left-hand side, because these are opposite reciprocals of each other, they do cancel out. So those cancel out, x comes down. Okay, I'm going to multiply straight across. And I'm going to get a +36/2. But my question is, do I leave my symbol the same or do I flip it? Do I leave my symbol the same, pointing in the same direction, or do I flip it? And the answer is that we need to flip it because we multiplied both sides by a negative. So this is a negative fraction. I multiplied both sides by a negative number. So I do need to flip this symbol to a less than or equal to symbol. I also need to simplify my fraction. 36 divided by 2 is 18. So here is my answer. We need to graph this. I'm going to come over here to my number line. I'm going to put 18 somewhere in the middle. I'm going to do a couple of numbers off to the side, on either side. My question is now, do I need an open circle or a closed circle? Open or closed? So with this line right here, that tells us that we have a closed circle. So at 18, I'm going to put a closed circle. And then the question is, do I shade left or do I shade right? And we look at our inequality here, and we notice that the tip or the small part of the inequality sign is touching the x. So again, I want small numbers. Small numbers always live to the left. So we're going to shade to the left. Okay. If you wanted to check your answer, you could do so by picking a number somewhere over here and then substituting it into your equation. You should find out that this is going to be a correct representation of our solution set. Okay. So moving on, I need you guys to go ahead and notes should be passed out at this point in time for you guys to have. And I need you guys to write your success criteria at the top. So that is these I can statements here. So I need you to write these 3 I can statements at the top of your note sheet. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video until the majority of the students have finished writing and then move on to the next part. I also need you guys to go ahead and get out your table of contents. So we should be towards the bottom of the table of contents. We are going to be taking notes on inequality word problems. And again, I really wish I could be there today with you guys to go over the word problems because I know how much you guys love word problems. That's why I'm doing the video, to make sure that the instruction is there while I am gone. Please keep in mind that today you will be needing to turn in a worksheet or a you-do. You'll be turning in the you-do on Wednesday. So you might not have enough time today to finish the you-do in class. There is a possibility, depending on time, if you might have to do one of the you-dos tonight for homework. Just one problem, that's it. But then again, you'll finish the rest of the you-dos tomorrow. And so that will need to be turned in by the end of class on Wednesday. You will have a worksheet. Depending on time, you might receive that worksheet tomorrow, Wednesday, and then you'll have a work day to work on that on Thursday. So it'll be due on Friday. And for extended time, it'll be due on the following Tuesday. So again, as a reminder, you'll have a you-do to work on today and tomorrow that will be due on Wednesday by the end of class that needs to be turned in. Then you will receive a worksheet possibly at the end of class on Wednesday, towards maybe the middle of class on Wednesday, depending on the time. That will also be worked on in class on Thursday, and it'll be due on Friday. You will also have a quiz. I know you guys love this. You will have a quiz on Friday going over all of these, okay? So 1-step, 2-step, multi-step, and word problems, okay? So a quiz over all 3 of these things, okay? So let's go ahead and get started with taking our notes. Since this is word problems, vocabulary is extremely important. What I need you guys to do is to go ahead and write these words down. underneath the correct symbols given to you on the screen. All of these words mean less than or equal to, greater than, or greater than or equal to. You probably don't hear the ones on the left-hand side too often. You'll hear them sometimes. But a lot of the ones that you do hear are the ones on the right-hand side. So, let's see. Does not exceed is another one that you might hear. The price value on your purchase cannot exceed a certain amount. There's usually a maximum or a cap on that. At most, you've probably heard that before, maximum. Same thing with the one down here. You have to have at least 3 problems done before you can leave today. That's just an example. But again, you definitely have heard some more of the ones that are on the right-hand side in the real world. So if you do need to pause the video for students to go ahead and write these down, please do so, and then unpause and go to the next slide. So looking at our first example here, we have a word problem, of course. George wants to start his own business. He bought a ladder and some supplies for $180. He plans on charging $10 per hour for painting. Sorry, that's not in there. How many hours will George have to work if he is to make at least a profit of $750? Okay, so we've talked about this before, that we need to read and then reread the problem and underline any key information. So George wants to start his own business. There's nothing there that's important. He bought. Well, we know that when you are buying things, you are spending money, and that is a negative. So he bought. We need to underline that, and we need to write the word spending and put a negative sign there, because that is a negative. We are spending money. It is coming out of our account. That is a subtraction, okay? So he is buying $180 worth of supplies. So we're going to write that down as a negative 180, okay? He plans on charging, so that's money coming in. That's income. We need to write that down. So income. And we're going to put a plus sign, because that is a positive change. Money is coming in as he's making that money, or painting houses or painting walls, okay? So we're going to put down a plus sign. He is charging $10 per meaning times, hour. That's our X, okay? So I'm going to write that as a 10X. It says, how many hours? Oh, we forgot to label that, didn't we? So hours is our X, because it even says here, how many hours? I don't know. That's our X. That's our unknown value. Will George have to work if he is to make at least, if you go back in your notes and you look at that chart, the words at least, which symbol are we going to use? So again, are we going to use a less than or equal to, greater than or equal to? Okay. So at least means that he can make $750, but he could also make more than $750, and that's going to be this symbol right here. So he can make $750, but he can also make more than $750. So we're going to use that symbol. Okay. So now I have my inequality. Now in formative, when you stick this into formative, you would need to stick this into formative just like this. So there's going to be 2 parts to formative when you stick your answers into formative. Yes, we're going back to formative. I know you guys love it so much. But again, by you guys typing these equations or inequalities into formative, you know right away if you're understanding how to write these inequalities out properly. Okay? Please use X for all of them. I will try to have them in there as much as I can. If for some reason you are seeing red in the formative after you type your answer in, let me know or let Mr. Everett know, and we can check on that, okay? So the next step is to go ahead and solve this out. You would work this out again, just like any other problem. So I would need to solve by x or solve for x. I'm going to add 180 to both sides. I get 10x. Ooh, look at me go. I almost put an equal sign. Okay. 750 plus 180 is 930. Okay. I'm going to solve for x by using division. Divide both sides by 10. My question is, do I keep this inequality the same direction, or do I need to flip it? And the answer is that I'm going to keep it this way because I divided both sides by a positive 10. Okay. When I take 930 and I divide it by 10, I get 93. And this needs to be in hours because remember, that's what we said our unknown was. So George will have to work 93 hours in order for him to make a profit of $750. Okay, so keep that in mind. He has to make a little bit more than what he has to pay off, right? Because remember, he still has this 180 that he bought supplies with. So he has to make more than the 780. So he actually has to make that $930, but we take away that 180 to make a profit of 750. Okay, so make sure that's in your notes, please. Remember, you have a quiz on Friday, so you can use these in your notes for your quiz. Okay, your turn. It's now you do number 1, so I need you guys to go ahead and pass that out if you haven't done so already, and do you do number 1. Pause the video, please. Okay. Okay, so for you do number 1, we're going to go ahead and look at this problem. Beth wanted to go to school dance, but can spend at most $25. So you need to look at your list. At most. At most means less than or equal to. The ticket cost $5. How many cookies should she buy, or could she buy, if cookies cost $1.25 each? Notice that the word each is here, not here. Usually it's here, but it's not here. Okay, so the inequality that you should have put together, cookies is our x. The inequality that you should have written down should have been 5 plus 125x less than or equal to 25. And you work this out. It should have been x is less than or equal to 16 cookies, which is quite a lot. I hope that Beth does not buy 16 cookies. That's a lot of sugar. But if you have friends and you're sharing, I'm okay with that. Okay. So, looking at example 2, Boondocks charges a flat entrance fee of $15 and $5.75 per round of golf. How many rounds of golf can you play with your friends if you can spend at most $50? Okay, so they charge a flat fee, flat entrance fee. That is what you are starting off with. You are starting off. That's your start off point is $15. So I'm going to write down 15. And remember, and means to add, so we're going to add $5.75 per round. Per meaning times, and round, we don't know how many rounds of golf he's going to play, so that is our x. So we're going to write that down. Rounds. How many rounds of golf can you play with your friends if you can spend at most? At most. So go back, look at your notes. Which symbol are we going to write down with the words at most? At most means that we're going to write down a less than or equal to symbol. Okay, so 575x less than or equal to $50. Okay, we're going to head and work this out. Again, we're going to solve for x, get x by itself. I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides. So 50 minus 15 is 35. Going to keep my symbols the same because I've only subtracted. Remember that I only flip when I divide, and I haven't divided yet. Okay. Then, in order to solve for x, I do have to divide because that's being held together by multiplication. Divide both sides by 575. Those cross out. I am not going to flip my symbol because the number I divided by is positive. 35 divided by 575 comes out to be a decimal. Oh my gosh. What are we going to do? So I'm going to write down just a couple of digits. So I get 6.086. So here's my question. I am talking about rounds of golf. Am I allowed to play part of a round, or do they only charge me by a full round? So it's only a full round. So here's my question. Do I have enough money to round this up to 7 rounds, or do I need to round it down to 6 rounds? So we look right here, and it says less than. So if I need less than this, then I do not have enough money to go up another round. So therefore, my final answer will have to be rounded down to 6 rounds of golf. Okay. So what I need you guys to do is to go ahead and change to your you do and work on the you do. If there is not enough time in class to complete the you do in class, this needs to be done for homework. So again, one problem tonight if there is not time in class to finish this in class. So okay. Example number 2. Boondocks charges a flat entrance fee of $15 and $5.75 per round of golf. How many rounds of golf can you play with your friends if you can spend at most $50? Okay. So looking at this, it tells us that there is a flat entrance fee. That is where you're going to start. So that is our starting amount, $15. And remember, the word and means that we're adding $5.75 per round. Per meaning times, round meaning that is our unknown. That is our X. So down here, I'm going to write the word rounds. Rounds of golf. I have no idea how many rounds of golf he is going to play. So I'm going to add that to our inequality as such. It says, how many rounds of golf can you play with your friends if you can spend at most $50? So we need to read back in our notes because we need to figure out what inequality symbol goes there. At most. Which symbol am I going to use? At most means that I can spend $50. But I could also spend less than $50. So I can spend $50 or I can spend less than $50. So we're going to use the less than or equal to symbol. Okay. We're going to go ahead and work this out. I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides. I'm going to get 575x. is less than or equal to 35. Okay. Now remember, we're not going to change our symbol yet because we only subtracted. Remember, we don't flip unless we divide by negative. Okay, we're going to divide both sides by a positive because this is a positive 575. Divide both sides by a positive 575. And because I did not divide by a negative, my symbol is not going to change. When I divide this out, oops, you guys, we're going to get a decimal. Oh my gosh. Just because we get a decimal does not mean that we are wrong or that we did any work wrong, okay? So we have to remember, what are we talking about here? We are talking about rounds of golf. Rounds of golf, okay? So here's my question. Do I have enough money to do 7 rounds? Or do I need to round it down to 6? Remember, I am on a cap here. My mom has already given me $50. I can't spend more than $50. So our inequality sign is saying less than this. So that's going to be your hint right there. We need to actually round our answer down to 6 rounds of golf. I cannot pay for anything higher than 6 rounds. Yes, one of your friends can give you extra money, but this is based on just with the money in your pocket. So x is less than or equal to 6 rounds. Some of you might type in rounds of golf. Rounds is just good. How many rounds can you play? Less than or equal to 6 rounds. Okay. So what I need you guys to do right now is, if you have time to do UDO number 2, go for it. If there is not enough time to finish UDO number 2 in class, then your assignment tonight is to do UDO number 2. And then tomorrow, when you come in and do the warm-up, Mr. Everett and the sub will be walking around and checking to make sure that you've done UDO number 2, and that's how you're going to get your signature or your check mark. Okay, so one more time. If there is not time to do the UDO number 2, it is going to be for homework tonight. And then you are to come in, have that paper out on your desks first thing in the morning, do the warm-up, and then Mr. Everett and the sub will be coming around to check to see that you've done UDO number 2.